on here that doesn't vibe with health necessarily, right? And to prove the state of our nation right now, life is chaotic, right? We have a lot of lemons and not a whole lot of lemonade sometimes. And it doesn't take you long to get on social media or the internet at all people want you to feel what they feel, especially media and news and things like that. It's hard not to be stressed out, right? I got a kick out of this because I just searched for chaotic headlines over the last few weeks, and this Elmo thing came up on Twitter, now X, right? And it was this Elmo. It's Elmo. And so Elmo, whoever runs Elmo, said, Elmo is just checking in. How is everybody doing? And 219 million views on it with thousands of quotes, likes, bookmarks, and it was full of people making comments of giving them their real life story about what their stress was and things like that. So the next day, Elmo was like, wow, Elmo is glad he asked. Elmo learned that it's important to ask a friend how they're doing. Elmo will check in again soon, friends. Elmo loves you. No advice, Elmo doesn't have any advice, but it's just, that's what went down because people are stressed out and life is chaotic. Hey guys. And this is Fox News and CNN, and they are full. You don't even have to read the headlines to know, like, life is chaotic a little bit, right? So the idea is to try to figure out what to do about it. And you'll have to open your phone again one more time so I can read this thing. To make light of chaos, I have a joke and a story, right? And thank you. Oh, I hit the power button. That's ridiculous. Funny.
Just unlock my phone.
That was stressful, wasn't it? Yeah. It's all about how you respond or react to it. Yep, indeed. So an old Italian gentleman wanted to plant his annual tomato garden. His only son, Vincent, who used to help him, was in prison. The old man wrote a letter to his son. He said, "Dear Vincent, I'm pretty sad because it looks like I won't be able to plant my tomato garden this year. I'm just getting too old to be digging up a garden plot. I know if you were here, my troubles would be over. I know you would be happy to dig the plot for me like in the old days. Love, Papa." A few days later, he received a letter from his son. "Dear Papa, don't dig up that garden. That's where the bodies are buried. Love, Vinny." At 4 a.m. the next morning, FBI agents and local police arrived and dug up the entire area without finding any bodies. They apologized to the old man and left. That same day, the old man received another letter from his son. "Dear Papa, go ahead and plant the tomatoes now. That's the best I could do under the circumstances. Love you, Vinny." Sometimes you got to be like Vinny. Try to make the most out of it and help out when you can, right? So this starts the problem with what's going on around us. And this is straight from the CDC right here. The CDC puts out these reports. The latest report we have is from 2022. 2023, there's like previews, but the full CDC report about what caused death in America hasn't come out yet. But that's what we're looking at. These are the top 10 things that people died from or with, okay? So the thing to realize here is that here's 2022, here's 2021, so you can see a relationship. This is the percent of deaths from that thing. So when you look at this number right here, 51.7% of people died from diseases of the heart, stroke, cancer, Alzheimer's, and diabetes. Half. So it's you or it's me is dying from one of those things. Like, that's the reality of right now going on in this country. Now, I'm not trying to shame anyone or say that it's easy, because it's not. But it's like, a lot of people aren't feeling these symptoms in their 20s, 30s, 40s, but that's when it's being cultured and grown, right? So it's an ounce of prevention is worth a dose of cure. The idea is to get way ahead of these things before you even know that you have them. Because this number probably isn't changing right now. This number only keeps getting worse. These things have been the top killers for a while now. And so if you want to dissect it a little more, 40%, 39.9 of all US deaths are from cancer or heart disease. And then when you add the others, half, right? So the thing about them, considered to be chronic diseases, preventable to a large degree. Not all of them. Cancer especially is a tough one. There are some that are genetic. They did a research study of looking at the top 16 cancers that affect people, and 15 out of 16 of them were found to have influence from the environment. which means you can do something to affect how you are experiencing cancer. You can do something to prevent your body from ever experiencing that in the first place. So that's what I would want you to know. Genes play a big deal, but so does your environment and what we all choose to do, right? So I have learned a lot from this medical doctor named Peter Attia, who wrote a book called Outlive, which was absolutely brilliant. And he makes it maybe even a little more grim, okay? Which is hard to believe that when it's 50% is already affected. But he says over 80% of deaths in people over 50. So we're not talking about 50% of everyone. We're talking about 80% of people over 50 die from these things, those 4 things. He calls them the 4 horsemen. So it's atherosclerotic, which is heart and stroke, cancer, neurodegenerative, which he's opening up the definition, not just Alzheimer's. Alzheimer's is the most common, but dementia and other dementias. Metabolic disease, which is, we're going to talk a lot about insulin and insulin resistance, but all the way to type 2 diabetes. 80%, that's what's killing people. And so these things are largely considered to be the chronic disease. It's not like you got sick one week and then the next week you expired. These are things people are struggling with for decades. And ironically, 45 to 50 is like a magic age. The leading cause of death in a US citizen under 45 is a category called accidents or injuries. And the number 1 cause of an accident is a drug overdose. And the number 1 drug to cause that overdose is an opioid, which is wild because it's like even at a younger age, we're seeing signs of these chronic conditions being present, but yet like to mask it and to just cover it up is not the way forward, right? And so it's, what should we do? What do we do about it? And that's what the rest of this is all about, is gleaning a little more hope from it, right? So before we get to that part, we have the health span versus the lifespan. This is just an important definition because lifespan is just how long you live, right? The world average, 73.2 years. Now, health span is how many years you have of active health, legit health, not riddled with chronic disease, not with a comorbidity that's limiting how you're living, right? And so the statistic out there is that on average, people are missing 9 years of quality life, 10 years of quality life. And they're experiencing symptoms that last and don't go away for the last 10 years of life, right? So something's happening here that's affecting that last 10 years to where we're dying with things, not peacefully in our sleep and things like that. And that is what I passionately want to change. My dad, when he was 53, he's 60, I'm 33. My dad's 11 years older than me. He's 64 now. When he was 53, he had open heart surgery. They went in to do a triple bypass. They ended up only doing a single bypass, but 53 is far too young for all of that. So the cardiovascular situation hit my family hard. And my dad was the first one, and then there was like a tumbleweed. His siblings got checked out, and then he's one of 6 kids. 3 others found something when they got checked out. And then he had a cousin get checked out. And it's just like heart stuff started happening. And there certainly is genetic influence into that. Your siblings and you are likely to experience a lot of the same things, but that's not the end of the story, right? And so I had family members look at me and say, are you going to get checked out? And I was like, well, wait a sec. Why would I get checked out? Like, I'm healthy. But then I started critically thinking about that. And it's, am I healthy? How healthy do I think I am? Is there something brewing in there that I don't know about? And that started me on the path where we're at right now. And the idea is to get this health span to match lifespan. And so my dad and I, we've done some work. We've tried to figure some things out. We changed a lot of the things that we ate and how we moved. Remember high school track, right? You go home with your parents, and our MO was we stop at Casey's or McDonald's and get a pop and a candy bar. You know, that's what we did, which our Casey's manager here, sorry. You need to sell some of those things to make a business, but it's like there are other options. There's a time and a place for pop and candy, but it's not all the time, right? And so it was that type of mindset that we had to change in order to make sure that our health span was going to match what we said we wanted to live and how we wanted to live, right? So this is Dr. Attia's chicken scratch, how it all started. Now, a lot of times when someone comes in, I'll ask them from 0 to 100. 100's perfect, couldn't be better. 0's dead and dying, bottom of the barrel. How do you feel right now, right? So 100 is up here on this graph. 0 is down there. Lifespan, this is age, right? 70, 80. What typically happens is from 70 to 80, your health span, your degree that you feel like 80, 90, 100% goes way down. And then you live down here under 50% for a decade. What Peter Attia is suggesting we do is try to move this curve to where you don't start feeling like you're actually sick until that last year or two of life. And he's talking about 90, you know? And what's the phrase that you said earlier, Jackie?
Die young as late as possible.
Die young as late as possible. That's what we're after. A chiropractor that I learned from, he used to say that life should be like a candle that burns brightly its entire life, flickers once or twice at the end, and then goes out. Just like that. Because we're all going to die, you know? And we should. We're here for a time, not multiple times, and then we should move on and let the next generation take our place. We can talk about that some other time, right? But, okay, so then this is all about the middleman. If we're talking about the four horsemen and what happens at the end, what's leading up to that, right? So metabolic syndrome is what we're going to talk about from here on out. Syndrome X is what it's called. I call it the middleman. I call it the middleman because this is the thing that I believe is leading into, and what a lot of doctors are saying, this is the precursor where you start to see signs and symptoms, but you don't see the signs and symptoms of the chronic disease that comes later, right? So these are the things to catch first. Metabolic syndrome is how you handle fuel, energy, gas in the gasoline. We all are fuel burning organisms, right? We don't just run on air and good vibes, though that would be nice if we did, okay? So 5 things categorize metabolic syndrome, but we'll get into other aspects as well. Abdominal obesity, weight here around the belly. High blood pressure. Impaired fasting glucose, blood sugar that's out of whack. Triglycerides is fat in the blood, essentially. And low HDL cholesterol. Now, cholesterol itself is not evil. You have a good cholesterol. HDL takes cholesterol from the body back to the liver. That's good. We don't want it hanging out in the body, just doing whatever it wants to do. LDL cholesterol, which most people know, takes cholesterol from the liver to the body, where it can cause inflammation and it can ding arteries and be part of the inflammation cascade. We don't like that. So when you're low HDL, when your HDL is low, that means you got cholesterol not in the liver, not stored properly, right? So the thing that's not on here, and the thing that goes with blood sugar especially, is insulin. And insulin is what our body does in response to blood sugar. When we eat, there's a blood sugar spike. Because we eat, food goes to our stomach, it gets absorbed, goes into the blood to go where it needs to go, right? Because our stomach and our intestines are here. But we need blood sugar in our muscles, right? So if I want blood sugar here, it's got to get somewhere, and it travels through the blood. And that's what insulin does. It shuttles blood sugar from the blood to tissue. Keep that in your back pocket, right, for later. So your metabolism is defined as us eating energy, absorbing it, storing it to be used later. So if you're eating it, are we storing it correctly and are we using it correctly? Okay. So a sign that your metabolism is out of whack. This is what metabolic syndrome is about. A metabolism that's not on track. Okay. So when I see people and they're talking about fatigue that doesn't go away, even with adequate sleep, 7, 8, 9 hours a night for a long period of time, and you're still tired, my red flag goes way up right away. To where I want to know all of these things as quickly as possible to see if you're in this boat of metabolic syndrome and to break that boat and get you back out of that as quickly as possible. Because there's nothing good on the other side of this. And this little graph right here, you'll go to the grocery store and you'll start seeing people, and it's a man, it's when their arms, neck, and legs look normal, but they're carrying weight around their midsection. That's a metabolic syndrome body type. Because body fat you start storing more body fat in the wrong places, and that's where it goes first. For women, you get this wide hips and butt, and then you, like a pear, that's the fruit right there. Then it tapers, and then you get another subset of weight in there. That's the body type. That's the metabolic syndrome body type, okay? So this is the real deep dirty behind metabolic syndrome. There's ways to say, oh, you've got it, okay? But what really is its inability to burn fat when you need to. Because there's 2 main types of fuel, right? Carbs, fat. You can do protein, but we don't like to do that. That's bad. We don't want to ever burn protein for fuel. We just want to stick with carbs and fat. But what happens if you never burn fat for fuel? Well, if you're still eating and you're still burning you're still taking in, but you can't mobilize that fat. It's got to go somewhere. If you don't poop it out, it sticks to you, right? So there's not a lot you need to eat. And this is what, if you really wanted to know what I think in a nutshell, is what you eat is what gets burned, which is why you get people who are doing this carnivore, which is just fat and protein, right? No carbs. So if they don't have any carbs in their system to burn, what do they burn? They have to burn fat, right? That doesn't work for everybody. Keto doesn't work for everybody, which is, again, is no carbs. Paleo is one of those. Paleo, keto, intermittent fasting, carnivore. If you've tried them and they don't work for you, one reason is you don't have metabolic flexibility yet to where you can burn fat. You're stuck in a cycle where all you're burning is carbs. One sign of that is that you crave sugar or salt all the time. And what's even worse is you get tired and then you crave sugar or salt all the time. So carbs is like twigs on the fire. They burn quick, but they don't last long. Fat is like logs on the fire. It takes longer to burn, but gives longer lasting energy. So if you're not doing this, if you ain't got any logs and all you have is twigs, you need a lot of twigs, or else the fire goes out quickly. So when you're craving sugar, that's your body trying to ask for twigs on the fire because it knows it can burn that now. We don't like that necessarily. Fasting taps into these fat stores as long as you have metabolic flexibility. Got it? Right? Okay. Moving on. So this is Nerd Phillip right here for a second, okay? Because we have 3 energy systems, 3 ways that you make energy, 3 ways that you store energy, 3 ways that you burn energy, okay? So energy is ATP. ATP is energy, okay? We metabolize, we break this to create energy, which makes us allowed to do things. The Olympics are going on right now. When the 100-meter dash happens, they use this energy system that only lasts for like 15 seconds. You use a lot of energy really fast. It's the system that works, that would allow you that whenever you want to get up and move, that's what happens first. And then 15 seconds later, you have to shift to a different energy system because you can't store that for very long. But if like primal age, right? Let's say you're around the fire at night and then a saber-toothed tiger sneaks up on you, you'd better be able to move now, right? So your body will keep this stored up for that quick response in a life-saving measure. Or think of mom saving a kid in a car crash or something like that. You've got that mom energy, that dad strength. That's this system. Everybody should have it. When that runs out, you get into this system, which is burning carbs. This is like the 400, 800 meter dash or the mile. That's a really good miler, by the way, because this system only lasts for like 2 to 3 minutes before it is exhausted from burning carbs. This essentially is your carb burning system here. After that runs out, you must burn fat. That's all you have left. This is exhausted, fat, fat, fat. If you can't do that, you just get tired. You're just tired all the time at that point, okay? The kicker here is that this requires your mitochondria to be healthy, okay? Mitochondria. Anybody remember biology? I guess I'm looking at you because the mitochondria is coined as the powerhouse. I knew you'd know. The powerhouse of the cell. It's where energy is metabolized. It's where it goes to get used, right? So you can have mitochondria that doesn't work so good, in which case you might even have fat or carbs in the right place, and then it just doesn't work. And so that's a separate issue as to why weight loss might not work for you, is because you can't even burn fat. So if your body can't burn fat, it just hangs on to it, and that could be a mitochondria issue. A hijacked metabolic system, that's what we're talking about. Food is fun and tasty. We should consider it first and foremost as fuel, not just a fun thing to eat. We shouldn't eat for cravings and to taste good. That's fun sometimes. I think I'm gonna have pizza later today. It's time for a loose day. Lunch was eggs and a salad, you know? That's what makes me feel good for when I wanna go to work and be a high functioning chiropractor. Hunger is not a desire for food, but a signal for energy. Cravings are from a hijacked metabolic system that's asking for sugar, 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 twigs on the fire right now. Don't like that. ATP, if you were curious what ATP is, it looks like that. We won't go into that right now. That's not for us. So, working backwards, these are the 4 horsemen. This is chronic disease. This is heart disease, cancer, Alzheimer's, dementia, diabetes, other metabolic issues. What causes that? We're talking through metabolic syndrome, the inability to burn fat, the reliance on only carbs. What feeds into that system. How do we get there? This is the lifestyle stuff. Not moving enough. So talking about this for a second, is any exercise builds more mitochondria. Because your body goes, oh, I worked out. I like that. That was good. We need to get ready to do that again. And your body makes more mitochondria. So it's not like you have to go through some big mitochondria cellular replacement plan. Just the fact of you getting out and moving builds more mitochondria. So physical inactivity, you don't get that. Mitochondria can stay sick and stupid and dead, and you won't build any more. Overfed and overnourished, this was a documentary on Netflix, which was kind of heartbreaking, but it's the illusion of, we certainly get enough calories in America, as like the majority of America is edging towards being overweight, right? We certainly get enough calories, but is there any nutrition in it? And that's the dilemma of metabolic syndrome, is this is an overfed person, but did they actually get any real nourishment, any minerals and vitamins and quality nutrition from what they're eating? I love grocery stores. I have great relationships with the grocery stores and the managers that work there. I think potato chips and Doritos is the worst thing ever. I have like a never list, and Doritos and Oreos are two things on there, because I would call those both ultra processed. There's ultra processed, there's processed food, which is a little bit better, but not really, and then there's actual food. So actual food doesn't have labels. Like, where's the nutrition label on an apple? There isn't one, because it's just an apple, right? There's no, you can't put a nutrition label on that. But when you look at what's on Doritos and you look at what's actually in there, it's stuff that you can't pronounce. It's stuff made in a plant. It's not made from plants, you know? That's bad. Stress and toxicity rounds out the four things that I think directly feed into ruining our metabolism and making us not be able to burn fuel the way that we're supposed to. We're going to get back to this here as well. The definition of insanity, right? If you continue to do the same things the way we've always done, you'll always get what you've always got. So we all have a choice, because 51.7% of people are going to die from or with these four things. So what do we do differently? Well, muscle and oxygen, okay? So I'm not going to bore you by taking you through a white paper research, but there's two of these that are staples and something that you should know. These are both in popular research articles that I've seen multiple times. So this one on the left, the conclusion is that cardiorespiratory fitness, okay, your aerobic fitness, your ability to move, run, breathe, and your risk of death across any age, okay? So inverse means when your cardiorespiratory fitness goes up, your risk of death goes down. Independent means there's nothing else needed besides that to make your risk of death go down. Just cardiorespiratory fitness. It's not like, oh, you need fitness and vitamin D3. No, it's just cardiorespiratory fitness alone, and is graded. The fitter you are, the less risk of death you have. So in this study, they looked at 750,000 veterans, followed them for a period of time, looked at who died and of what, and looked at the people who stayed healthy. So the idea was you have 5 groups of people, the most fit and the least fit. The least fit had 4 times higher risk of dying from anything at any time than the most fit. Like, there's no drug, pill, potion, or lotion that can do that. If there was, it would be the highest selling thing ever. Just your fitness and your ability to breathe and how your lungs work, your risk of death goes down from anything at any point. So then same thing happens for muscle mass, right? High levels of muscular strength. So this study was specifically on men with high blood pressure, but their incidental finding was that their all-cause mortality, the risk of death from anything, let alone a cardio event, went down from having muscular strength. So there's 2 things. There's your cardio fitness and your muscular strength. This is interesting because your muscular strength was in addition to the benefit provided by cardiorespiratory fitness, which means if you're really fit, that's one thing. And then there's even more benefit if you have a higher muscular strength than the average person, which is wild because it's not one or the other. It's like, oh, I'm a runner and I can run for 12 miles. Well, if you also were strong, there would be even more benefits. That's just crazy. So if there's anything that you learn from being here is that muscular strength, muscle on your frame, muscle more than body fat. That's one thing I do in the office. Everyone on their second day to me will get a body fat a whole body composition scan where we measure your muscle mass, your body fat, and how much water is in you to see if your muscle mass is higher than body fat, which is 1, and then we want it in a 2-to-1 ratio. Twice as much muscle as body fat would be ideal. If you had that from now to the day you die, it would be very hard for a chronic disease to touch you. Because muscle mass helps regulate blood sugar. When you eat, the first place blood sugar will go, it wants to go to muscle. Because your body wants to save your life in case you need to move, right? Your muscle has the ability to store 1,200 to 2,000 calories, which is not a lot. It takes like 2 to 3 hours to burn through all that if you were constantly moving before you would have a need to eat again, if that's all you could burn, right? Muscle mass is very important because it's basically a blood sugar handling organ. We like that. The more muscle you have, the easier it is for blood sugar to leave your bloodstream, which means you need less insulin. And higher insulin is what is a component of metabolic syndrome, right? More muscle, better blood sugar. So fitness also helps regulate body fat, which body fat is inflammatory. Body fat stores toxins. Body fat is only there when you needed to store excess calories. So if you can do cardio to help regulate your body fat, which we'll get into how to do that as well, that's going to help you. We haven't even talked about food yet, right? Let's talk about food. Okay, my favorite book of all time, this one by this author, Michael Pollan, Food Rules. It's hilarious. He has 64 rules and they're all less than a page long. It's the easiest read ever. His whole strategy on eating, eat food not too much, mostly plants. That's it. Now, I'd probably put a comma right there and say mostly plants and a lot of protein. Protein per day. I usually tell people 100 grams a day. That's how much protein you should be eating. More if you're bigger, less if you're smaller. A lot of people will say it's 1 gram per pound of lean body tissue. Whatever you want to weigh. 1 gram of protein per what you want to weigh. So if I want to weigh 175 pounds, that's what I should be shooting for in a day. That's a lot. I think it might be too much. Not sure. The verdict's out. I keep looking at you because I know we're studying these things. It's hard. It is certainly hard. So I'd probably say, I usually tell people start at 100 grams and then see what your body's asking for. See how you feel at that. But I'd probably say that most people are at 50 to 60 or less, which is 2 to 3 times smaller than what we should be eating, right? But he says plant protein is good. I agree. I think meat protein is also fantastic. Where it's sourced matters. That's a different talk. But I will admit it is an incredibly complicated situation, but you can't go wrong with this. Doritos are not food. Oreos are not food. Starburst is not food. Dr. Pepper is not food. So it's like, when you start looking at what actually is food, you're like, oh, that makes sense. We're eating things that have a caloric density but no nutritional value, and that wrecks metabolism over time. 3 of his rules that I really like, this guy, again, the easiest book. Put it in your Amazon cart, buy it tonight, read it as soon as you can. If it's a plant, eat it. If it was made in a plant, don't. Just makes me laugh. Don't eat breakfast cereals that change the color of your milk. It's not food. Food doesn't do that. Rule 20, it's not food if it arrived through the window of your car. No, it was probably a scientist who formulated how to make you want to come back and get it again. That sort of thing. His last rule, though, is good. Rule 64 is break the rules every now and again. That's why I'm having pizza tonight, right? But so what you have before you, the handout, this is if you are in a position where you wanted to lose weight, to get rid of angry body fat and help your body put on more muscle, I would say start here. Not every diet works for everyone. 80% of people who go on a diet end up gaining weight back. It's crazy. A study in the 2009, The Biggest Loser, there were 14 participants. 13 of them gained weight back. Only 1 kept it off. That whole fad, the TV show, Jillian Michaels and Bob Harper, it was fun to watch. It was very motivating. But it's like there's something about going on diets, restricting calories, and how it messes up your metabolism, right? So we're looking at ways to figure out how to not mess up your metabolism, lose proper weight. We don't want to lose muscle ever. We only want to lose body fat. That's why we scan those things at the office. And he has 5 rules, which I very largely agree with in a nutshell. And when I say he, this guy, his name is Tim Ferriss. He wrote The 4-Hour Body. He wrote also The 4-Hour Work Week, all about how to maximize productivity in as little time as possible. He's after the minimum effective dose, which is a fun concept. What's the little you can do to get the maximum result? And that's what he came up with a diet here. So his 5 rules, I 100% agree with this at all times. Avoid white, starchy carbohydrates for those, or those that can be white, which means rice can be brown. The rule of thumb is you're not eating those types of things if you're trying to lose weight. If you're trying to maintain weight, that's a little bit different. You can be a little more liberal with carbs. But when you're trying to lose weight, carbs really don't have a whole lot of benefit in your system. If you eat carbs, you must burn carbs or store it. If you're eating a lot of carbs, you have to burn a lot of carbs and before you get into that fat burning stage, right? So there's no benefit to eating a lot of carbs. I agree with this because simplicity, keep it simple, stupid, right? The KISS principle, eat the same few meals over and over. His stock meal, eggs, black beans, spinach, and salsa. He says eat that as much as you can tolerate it. And I love it. It's the best. I love organic beans, make you feel a little less beany, if you know what I mean, in there, in your gut. Eggs have 6 grams of protein per egg, so like I have no problem doing 3 or 4 at a time. Black beans add protein to that meal. Spinach is actually very good at muscle building. It doesn't have protein per se, but it has enzymes and things in it that help you build muscle. It's like a super meal. If you talk about superfoods, there's very few that I think are actually superfoods, but this will do you some good. Sticking with eggs, black beans, and spinach. Add a little avocado on there, some salsa and some sriracha, or a little chulola hot sauce. Whew, boy, that's a good meal right there. And it leaves you satisfied because it's full of protein and fat, which makes you feel full. Carbs don't necessarily make you feel full. They leave you hungry 90 minutes or 2 hours later, which is a carving, because carbs are twigs on the fire. They burn quickly. They don't leave you feeling satisfied, right? Chicken, fish, beef. I think organic grass-fed beef is amazing. Red meat gets a bad rap because it's considered inflammatory, a lot of omega-6 fatty acids. Organic beef, there's research out there that shows that it's anti-inflammatory because it's got more omega-3s, which is good, very good for your brain and your body. Don't drink calories, which I don't know if there are many pop drinkers in here. Are there many pop drinkers in here? Should I be looking at you?
Probably.
Indeed, probably.
Free, you know?
Right, that's a crutch right there. It stinks that it's free for you. But you know, I found it funny. 1 to 2 glasses of dry red wine allowed on his diet. You know, you don't have to be a super freak about not drinking calories. He actually drinks diet pop on this diet. He said he lost. So when you look up Tim Ferriss and what he did, he lost a lot of weight really fast because he's a scientist for his own body. He pushed his body to the limits, and he drank 16 ounces of Diet Coke every day. Now, normally I say stop that immediately and run far from pop, but there's a way where if you're managing your macros, your carbs and your fat, and you're finding a way to burn fat, you can live a little, if you know what I mean, right? But the rule is don't do that until you know what you're doing and you're managing your body composition. Fruit doesn't really help you lose weight. I said it, shoot, it's tough. Like fruit is good for you, tons of vitamins and minerals. If you didn't have weight to lose, I would be saying eat the rainbow, every color, every day, all across the board of fruit and vegetables. But like if you're trying to lose weight, it doesn't do a lot for you. It's a lot of carbs, it's a lot of fructose, which is insulin raising. It raises your insulin, which is part of the metabolic syndrome scenario. 500 years ago, your ancestors probably didn't eat oranges in December. Not natural, theoretically, for us to be eating fruit even in cold months like ours. So if you want to go that ancestral route, this is absolutely true, you know? Do you need to be a super freak about not eating fruit? No. If you knew what you were doing, handling your body composition, you could pick when to do this, right? Rule 5, take 1 day off per week, go nuts. Like don't drive yourself crazy trying to limit your calories, trying to stick to eggs and black beans and spinach the whole time. Like it'll get old. So 1 day a week, live a little. I agree with that most of the time. Do you need to have 3 days of 4,000 calorie meals? Probably not, you know, but one good meal where you eat what you want, like pizza, or have a Dr. Pepper for crying out loud, you know, and then get right back on the train after that. I would say reaching back a step, when you eat, your blood sugar would like to go into muscles. So if you work out or do an exercise or go for a walk right before you eat, you make your muscles ready to receive glucose, blood sugar. That I would call a pro tip, because you don't want glucose being stored as fat. So you need somewhere else for it to go. So therefore, put it in muscles. How do you do that? Work out before. Get that muscle energy out so that it's ready to replenish. So I even get benefit myself from working out after a meal. It just seems like I feel less bloated, I feel better, I'm more energetic. But the rule of thumb would be, if you want a place for blood sugar to go, work out before your meal. Prime your body to receive calories. Because again, if you're full of energy in your muscles and you ate, that energy has to go somewhere. If you're not gonna burn it, it'll go to body fat. If your healthy body fat, because there's plenty of healthy body fat, is already saturated with calories, it goes to angry body fat. And then it never stops, right? So you need a place for your calories to go. I'll get out of. So you have these handouts in front of you, page 1 and page 2. Just a starting place, just food for thought. I don't say this is the way or else. There's a lot of reasons why everything we've talked about right now wouldn't work for you. There's a lot of reasons why it wouldn't work for you, right? So then when that happens clinically in my office, usually I'm going back to, we're trying to assess the deadly quartet, the 4 things that lead to metabolic syndrome, to see if there's a real problem there and to see if there's a problem on why that's interrupting your metabolism, right? Which the 4 things that lead to metabolic syndrome, which leads to the chronic disease, not getting enough nourishment, a poor diet, which hopefully we've addressed some of that, physical inactivity. Toxins is a big, really big. If you're drinking tap water, stop immediately. And stress is another big one. And so these are deeper topics that I want to clinically talk to you about. If these are big things in your life, stress, if your daily routine and your past history has been high stress, like yes, there are reasons why this would mess up your metabolism. Toxicity, if a lot of alcohol, or even, there's a gal today, man, she's going through a divorce. She also is a welder and has 4 kids. That woman breathes, she lives in a toxic environment, and she is high stress. Like, her metabolism is whack, let me tell you, right? And it makes you feel crazy sometimes because it affects hormones. Which hormones get to your brain. Neurotransmitters are hormones in your brain, and when those are out of whack, they make you feel crazy, right? Which is why that's probably the most medicated thing. After opioids for pain, it's gotta be antidepressants. I think statins is the drug most often prescribed and taken for cholesterol, but antidepressants has gotta be top 3 or 5. So those are all things not to ignore, not necessarily to medicate and try to cover up, but to get after them, right? Hormones, low testosterone in men is more commonly found, high estrogen in women. You can eat in a way to boost testosterone and get rid of estrogen. Broccoli sprouts, broccoli gets rid of estrogen. It activates a gene pathway that gets bad estrogen out of you. It's lovely, it's immaculate. Broccoli, but then broccoli sprouts. Broccoli sprouts is baby broccoli. It's one of the best things out there. You can grow it in your house in a window with a little water and some sunlight, and you can eat it on repeat. Throw it in your spinach and egg bowl, right? So here's a call to action. If you're wondering, like, okay, I hear you, I'm hearing everything you say, what do I do? So I would go 5 days eating what's in front of you on this page, or eating just fruit, veggies, and protein. Eat smart, I'd say. Eat smart. No processed anything. Only things that came from the ground or from animals that ate the ground, if you know what I mean, right? I love green tea. Green tea burns fat. I love coffee. I should have put coffee up there. I wouldn't say get rid of coffee unless you've been relying on it for energy. Then it's probably time to give it a break. There should be no need for a stimulant to give us energy, right?
So only green tea, not like unsweet, whatever kind
Okay.
from Hy-Vee?
Yes, unsweetened black tea, good.
Okay.
Green tea, good.
Okay.
Oolong tea is a good one. I've never had it, but I've heard that it does a lot of fat burning things, just like green tea. So yes, drink your tea. Tea is very little calories, no caloric burden. Because, you know, in 10 or 15 years, toxicity will be everywhere. We will know the effects of toxicity because it's everywhere. The water, the food. Again, a bigger topic, but it is everywhere. There was a study by a place called the Environmental Workers Group, and they looked at 15 babies, so not a huge study. They looked at the umbilical cord and what was in the umbilical cord in the blood. Over 200 known toxins. 200. Like 200, not like 4. Like 200 toxins that are known to cause metabolism and hormone issues. 200. Like, that's a big deal. And that was in a newborn baby. So in the placenta and all that, oh, that shouldn't be getting to the baby, but it did, is the point. It got through the placenta to the umbilical cord. That's a problem. So toxicity is a huge issue, to where I officially recommend anyone who will listen to me a 10 or 28-day detox program, which is eating smart with supplements that mobilize toxins. Guess where toxins are stored? Fat cells. So if you have angry fat that won't get out of you and you've been doing all the right things, sometimes it's time to detox, because your body will not let go of those body fat cells if there's toxicity in them and your body's not ready to handle it. Which is why I think a lot of people gain weight back after they lose it, because toxins they were still in you. You lost the weight, but not the toxins. And so your body needs a plan to handle that, and body fat is, its primary function is storage. So then if you're like, okay, I'm already eating well, and I don't think toxicity is really a problem, I would say if you're not already doing this everyday activity, which again, find your own thing. I think pickleball is fantastic. We have a awesome disc golf course where you can go do an activity, play a sport, and get some steps in, right? I love our track. I love walking or running at the track. It's just good on my feet and my knees and all that sort of stuff, right? There are things to do. We have a big, beautiful dog park now too, right? How many dogs in this? Everybody got a dog? You got a dog? You got a dog? No dogs. You got a dog? You got a dog? Okay, 2/3, right? Like, rule of thumb, alternate days. Walk or do some fitness. Pickleball would count, you know? And then weightlifting is the harder thing, something that most people are not. I'm not saying you should go grind on the weights necessarily, but we would figure out a protocol for you to put on some muscle if possible. But alternating cardio one day, weights the next. 6 days on, take a day off, 1 day off, Sunday off, don't do anything. Every 6 weeks, take a whole week off, don't do anything. Take 2 if you want, you know? Be free, but stick to your framework and get right back on it. Get a friend to do it with you. So if this is where, if movement hurts, this is the time to go see your favorite chiropractor or a physical therapist or a massage therapist. Denise is a massage therapist. Whoever can help you get active. I would say do not allow yourself to give in to pain. There are a bunch of really smart people out there who can help you get moving, and yeah, that's the time. Because this is a non-negotiable, you know, movement. You must move. Muscle and fitness, you know, this is the thing that prevents metabolic syndrome, which prevents chronic disease. You must move, you must build muscle, you must be aerobically fit, right? I'm gonna get all motivational here, okay, right? Discipline, you don't have to want to do anything. Discipline has nothing to do with wanting it. Discipline is about being willing to do the thing you need to do, even when you don't feel like doing it. That's discipline. That's the only thing, this and what I would call intention. So back to the chaos slide from the beginning, like nothing organized, health especially, what is, I would say, is putting your health in order. Nothing organized happens without intention. There's no organization without intention. Things don't just fall into perfect order, right? A Swiss watch, the most beautiful watch ever, the pieces didn't just bounce and become a watch, right? Like it took intelligence and intention. So if you're intentional with your time and intentional with your goals, that plus discipline is all you need to make a change. That's it. There's nothing else. You don't have to want to do anything. You just gotta do it, if you know what I mean, right? So this was going to be a picture of my 4-day-old daughter right there, but didn't get it in there. But you got to have a good why as well. This is the last thing I'd say is that there's a good documentary about the blue zones, which is blue zones are parts of the world where people are known to live longer without chronic disease, harboring that last decade of life, right? So in Japan, they call it an ikigai. An ikigai is just knowing your why, knowing your purpose. And the ikigai of this little community of Japanese women is the family. There is one woman, she's like 103, and she was holding her great-great-great-granddaughter. And that was her why, was the family, the community, you know? So discipline, intention, and a really good why, you know? You gotta have a reason that gets you out of bed to do the discipline even when you don't wanna do it. You gotta have a really good reason. If you wanna do it just to do it, it's usually not enough, if you know what I mean. Again, that's a whole different talk. That's why Tony Robbins is huge and all those discipline guys. There you have it. This is the time for questions.